We got our NFL winners and losers for the last week of the season in week 17. Mari, you ready to point out our winners and losers? I know I am.
Let's go.
All right, all right. We will, as usual, we will start off with our losers. I'll start with mine. My first loser of the week is PJ Walker. I know he's the backup quarterback for the Panthers. I know it's tough to pick on a backup QB. But let me explain why he's my loser, all right, before I get to the stats. Teddy Bridgewater, right? In the 33-7 loss to the Saints, he threw 13 for 32, 23 with his completion attempts, 176 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. You would expect the backup to do well, right? PJ Walker went 5 for 14 in completion attempts, 95 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So I don't know what happened. I mean, I thought we were gonna finish strong, but we just like I don't know. I don't know what to say. But yeah, because he didn't come in and stop the nosebleed or at least do what he can to step up for the team, he is unfortunately my number one loser of the week. And I love PJ Walker too. It sucks to see him on here. I tried to not put two quarterbacks on here, but I just couldn't resist this one. He was my winner last week, but he lands on my losers list this week. It's Brendan Allen, the quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. He had 6 for 21 completion attempts, 48 yards, no touchdown, and 200 interceptions. Mind you, this is the entire game that he played. That's his stat line for the entire game. I mean, I know the Bengals didn't have anything to play for, but like we say with all these teams that didn't make the playoffs, finish strong, you know. And that's just that's unacceptable, especially if you got to back up Joe Burrow, who's probably not even going to be starting next year's with his really bad knee injury. So because of that, he's my second loser on this list. And my last loser is the Dolphins rushing. I'm gonna tell you why. All right, they didn't play bad. All right, well they had 2 touchdowns, but the rest of it isn't so flashy. 20 attempts and 70 yards through I think it was 5 or 6 players. 2 touchdowns to the bonus. I'll give them a pass on that. But the reason why they're my loser this week is because they made Tua, the Russian didn't step up. Tua threw the ball almost 60 times in that Bills game. 58 times to be exact. We've said it on the show many times before, and I'll continue to say it is absolutely unnecessary to make the quarterback throw over around 50 times. You almost made Tua throw 60 passes in that game. It's absolutely unnecessary. Now I can't necessarily blame the rushing. I can blame the coaching for that because the coaching should, if you're gonna make your quarterback throw that much, at least resort to your rushing at least. So it's more on the coaching, but at the same time, the rushing didn't step up either. And because of that, I feel like that's a big factor as to why the Dolphins lost that game the way they did.
All right, Nate. So let me review your losers. So I'll start with Walker. Now, see, here's the thing. It's kind of disappointing because for the Panthers because this was a game where the Saints had no running backs, none.
Right.
They all they all couldn't play due to COVID. When Alvin Kamara got it, the whole running back room ended up being quarantined and stuff. And I mean, wishing the best of luck to them. But I mean, you're absolutely right. PJ Walker, when Teddy Bridgewater wasn't doing well, he just didn't. He just really didn't show up. And I mean, that's a big problem right there. So I mean, with that being said, I absolutely agree. PJ Walker should be on the losers list or one of our losers list because that's just unnecessary. It's the last game of the year. You know what I'm saying? The mentality
Finish
I
strong.
have is if my team don't make the playoffs is okay, we didn't make the playoffs, but we're going to make sure as many teams that we play, we're going to affect their chances of getting a good playoff spot.
Yeah.
That's my
Right.
so PJ Walker, I mean, he did a really bad job, and I mean, he absolutely deserves to be on this list. Brandon Allen was one of my losers too. I mean, I couldn't help it. You just can't help it, man. Like I mean, 6 for 21, 48 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, like let's be real. That is unnecessary. And
Yeah.
I understand the Baltimore Ravens are a great defense. I understand that completely. But when your quarterback only completes 6 passes out of 21, that is so
For
unnecessary
the
and that's so
entire game.
unprofessional for the entire game. That's so unnecessary. It's so unprofessional. And this is the complete opposite of what we always talk about. We always talk about don't put whenever you run bad, you're putting pressure on the quarterback. Well, whenever you throw, you're putting pressure on your running backs.
Yeah. Right.
And that's even worse than putting pressure on the quarterback because the quarterback can easily throw and get a completed pass for 5, 10 yards. That's a lot easier than the running back run 10 yards a play. So I mean, there's no excuse here. Brandon Allen did a terrible job, and he absolutely deserves to be the number one loser of Week 17. And last but not least, this one's the one I disagree with, the Dolphins rushing. And I understand where you're coming from. Absolutely, 100%. I completely understand where you're coming from. We talked about this many, many times. Again, we just mentioned it right now that if the rushing game doesn't do good, you're putting pressure on the passing game. But the reason why I disagree with you is because to call the rushing game losers, I just can't put it like that. I can't because the rushing game in general didn't have any loser stats. I mean, like 20 for 70. That's probably about 3.5 yards per carry. It's not the best. I absolutely agree with you, but they did have 2 rushing touchdowns. So the pressure really, when you look at it, the pressure really wasn't. It really wasn't there. Like I don't think they really gave Tua a lot of pressure. What I think this came down to, I gotta be real with you. I gotta be 100%. I think it came down to them not being able to choose one key rusher. That's what I think it was. I mean, when you look at the rush stats, Salvin Ahmed had 6 rushes. Tua had 6. Miles Gaskin had 7, and Lynn Boyden had 1 for like -7 yards. I mean, when you look at it like that, you need to pick a main runner and you need to go with that. That's the problem I see right there. And I understand why you would put them as losers, but respectfully I disagree. And the reason why is because I just don't think it's enough to be a loser stat. But I do agree that the rushing could have did a lot more to kind of like could have did a lot more to the Miami Dolphins in this game, and I just don't think altogether the Miami Dolphins didn't do a good job. So with that being said, here's my losers. A lot of them can obviously I explained Brandon Allen, so we're going to the next one. I put Teddy Bridgewater as my loser. Here's why. He goes, you explain the stats. He went 13 for 23, 176 yards, 0 TDs, 2 interceptions, and he had 2 fumbles too. Can't forget about that. Here's my point for the reason why he's a loser. If he didn't play this bad, PJ Walker wouldn't play to begin with. And that's my problem. And that's my problem with Teddy Bridgewater right now because he played bad. That even though it's the last game of the season, you want to end on the season with a bang. Even though he played bad, if he wouldn't have even have played if Teddy Bridgewater would have just do his job in the first place. And he didn't do a good job of it. And because of that, that's why I have Teddy Bridgewater as my second loser. My third loser is connected to again another one of you. It's Tua. I'm gonna be real with you. It's Tua. Tua had 35 for 58, 361 yards, which is good. 1 TD and 3 picks. The reason why he's my loser is because we're accustomed to seeing Tua be so much better than this. We're accustomed to see Tua be a lot more accurate than what he was last game. You know what I'm saying? Like 3 interceptions is unnecessary for Tua. And this is what we said. With Ryan Fitzpatrick not being there, it was up to Tua to play a great game, and he didn't do it. And now there's going to be a lot of hesitation, I believe, around Tua. Do I still think Tua is a winner? Yes, I believe this is probably I say this is his second worst game in his career. The first being his loss in college in the national championship against Clemson. I think this is the second worst loss in his career. And he knows that. I think he'll improve. I think Tua is a very intelligent quarterback. I don't think he's a slouch. I just think he had one bad game. But like you said, they made him throw 58 times. Tua is not the quarterback accustomed to throwing 58 times in the NFL. This isn't college. If you look at Tua in the NFL and you look at Tua in college, those are 2 different quarterbacks right there. And not in a bad way, you know what I'm saying? Like the Tua in the NFL has better qualities than the Tua in college, and the Tua in college has better qualities than the one in the NFL. What I mean by that is, if you get the Tua in college, he was very aggressive like this, 361 yards. You know what I'm saying? Only difference was he would have 4 TDs. Difference between the Tua in the NFL, he's a lot more accurate and a lot more precise, and I believe he's a lot smarter of a quarterback. But this game, this is just a mixture between good and bad. Like 361 yards is good, but what is that? That don't matter, and that don't matter at all unless you get the win. And he didn't get the win. Reason why he's my loser. Your thoughts?
Well, I already went through Brandon now, and I already went through Teddy Bridgewater too, so I'll get to Tua. See, this is one of the loser stats where I can't, excuse me, I can't particularly fully blame Tua. Like I said, coaches are making him throw almost 60 passes in one game. It's absolutely unnecessary. I guess the Buffalo Bills, but it doesn't matter what team you're facing. It doesn't matter if you're facing 85 Bills. It is unnecessary to throw that many times in a game. It really is. And because of that, I feel like because he threw that much, he threw those 3 interceptions. And again, it's one of those things that's not particularly
I
his fault,
agree.
but at the same time, he's gotta do something about that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, he had over 360 yards. It's not bad, but out of those 360 yards, he had more interceptions than touchdowns. He had 3 interceptions and he had 1 touchdown. So, if it was like 3 interceptions, I would have been like, yeah, I can see why. But like you said with the Dolphins rushing, but that's not the case here. And I can't particularly blame him, you know, for those other poor stats. So overall, I agree with your stats. I wanted to put Teddy Bridgewater as a loser, but I thought PJ Walker did. I think he did work, so I'm glad you put him on the list. Brandon Allen, we had the same one. So overall, I don't got a problem with your losers list. So with that said, I'm gonna go on to my winners for Week 17, and my number one winner is the Ravens rushing. Get this: 54 rushes, 404 yards, and 2 TDs. That's absolutely incredible. Over 400 yards rushing for your entire rushing squad. That's incredible. This is the best rushing in the entire league, hands down. I don't even think I gotta say anything else. Um, my second winner is the New Orleans Saints defense. To be more specific with you in terms of the interceptions, get this: this is between 9 players, 5 interceptions, 90 yards, and 10 passes defended. Think about that for a minute. That's between 9 players. That is incredible. If they could carry this on in the playoff, I know they were facing the Panthers, but like I've said this a lot on this channel. When it comes to the NFL, every single game you play matters. You only play 16 games a season, so you got to make every game count. And this is something that should not be underlooked because that's incredible. Um, and my third winner this week, despite his loss, I'll give it to Deshaun Watson. And I'll give a pretty specific reason why before that. I'll read you the stats real quick. He had 28 for 39 completion attempts, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and he became the passing champion with a total of 4,823 yards. So kudos to Deshaun Watson. And I said it many times on this show. I don't know how many more times I gotta say it. He is a top five. Deshaun Watson is a top five quarterback in this league. I don't give a damn what any of you say out there. Your thoughts, Mario?
My bad.
There you go.
Before before you read Deshaun Watson, I give my review, can you read Deshaun Watson's stats one more time?
Oh
Because it
yeah.
kind of
He had 28 for 39 completion attempts, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, and he was the 2020 passing champion with 4,823 yards. He beat out Patrick Mahomes.
yeah. All right. So I'll start with the Ravens rushing. First of all, thank you to J.K. Dobbins because he is a big reason why I won my fantasy Super Bowl. So appreciate you, buddy. Now, with that being said, yeah, the Ravens rushing just went everywhere. They just went explosive on the Cincinnati Bengals. And obviously you got J.K. Dobbins, you got Gus Edwards, you got Lamar Jackson. Those three were probably most of those rushing yards. And I mean, hey, if whatever way you know how to beat a team, you do it. And it looks like rushing is the way to beat the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't think they did defensively. I don't think rushing wise against defensively, even though they beat the Steelers, I think the Steelers still had a decent rushing night. And I think that if they kind of like leaned a little bit more on that rushing, they could have did a lot more. So with that being said, what the Ravens did, and as a matter of like three runners just running the damn ball down their throats. I mean, if that's the way you know how to beat a team, then go out there and beat it. If it's not broken, don't fix it. We heard that a million times, and it's clearly not broken because you beat them 31-3. So with that being said, now we're gonna go to the Saints defense. First of all, I gotta applaud the Saints defense in a game where this was very crucial. And I know they didn't get the first round bye or the number one seed or nothing like that. I know that went to the Green Bay Packers,
Packers.
but I got to give a lot of credit to the New Orleans Saints. In a game where you did not have your running back room and you needed this game to win, and you defense really stepped up when they needed to the most. This was the biggest game that I felt like they needed to step up, and they did. Now, with this being said, the Saints defense is very, very good. They got a lot of playmakers on that team, such as Marshawn Lattimore, Janoris Jenkins. They got Trey Hendrickson, who is he's one of the leaders in sacks this year, and Cam Jordan, who's obviously a big time veteran. So I expect them and Demario Davis is a very good player too. So I expect them to keep this up during the playoffs. I expect
Right.
this defense to put their foot on the pedal and just drive through the playoffs. They're one of the teams I expect that could go to a Super Bowl, but they got to be consistent. And I think with Drew Brees kind of getting his rhythm back a little bit, and him kind of like after his injury, he's getting his rhythm back a little bit. I believe the running back room should be there for next game. And with that being said, I believe the Saints can make a big run here if the defense performs. If not, it's gonna be a lot tougher for them.
Right.
Number three, and your number three was Deshaun Watson. Deshaun, first of all, congratulations on leading the league in passing yards. I mean, that is a big feat. That is a big accomplishment. Yeah, Deshaun Watson is an exceptional quarterback. I absolutely agree. He's top five. I'm sorry, he is. Despite his losing record, it is not his fault. He is top five.
Yeah, right.
And again, like you say, I don't care what anybody says. You know what I'm saying? Any team would be lucky to have Deshaun Watson. It's just unfortunate that he's in that position and there's not a lot he can work on right now. But I'll give him credit. Him and the Texans really did stay into that game and do what they can to beat the until the last minute. Obviously, the defense kind of let go. But for him to put up those types of stats against the Tennessee Titans, who are a playoff team now,
Hmm.
for him to put up those types of stats with that type of team, it's exceptional and it's extraordinary. And I don't put losers up. I don't put like losing team like players who lost that week on my list. But I'll say this: if there's one guy who deserves it out of like a very few, it's definitely him.
Right.
Now, as for my winners, all right, this one it's not based off stats most likely, but it's based off of like most of them are the three of them are two out of three of them are based off of like the accomplishments they made this season. First, Justin Jefferson. Give me a break. Let me put my guy on there. I don't think I've picked him this whole year. So give me a break. Okay. 9 receptions at 133 yards. I know what you're saying. Yeah, there's a lot of guys who played better, but let me tell you something, okay? Justin Jefferson broke Aquan Bolden's rookie season record for most reception yards in a season. And he now owns that record. I believe he has over 1,400 yards. I think it's like 1,430. So I got to give him credit. In your first year to drop 1,430 yards, is extraordinary. I mean, I think he's a very bright. I think he has a very bright future in this league. Derrick Henry, 34 rushes, 250 yards, and 2 TDs. I mean, obviously that's winner stats right there, no doubt about it. But here's the big reason why I put him on here. He has become only the 8th running back in NFL history to have a 2,000-yard season, and it's a nice little list he's part of. And with that being said, I gotta give him. I gotta best congratulations to him. He is the back-to-back rushing leader. He is the best running back in the game. And I know a few weeks ago he said that was Dalvin Cook, but numbers don't lie. When it comes to late in the season, he steps up and he comes in clutch and he does exactly what he needs to do for his team to win. And last but not least, you know what? It's the last week. I'm not going to see him for like another 6 months. Maybe put him on here. I'll get Kirk Cousins on here. Kirk Cousins definitely had a great game. 28 for 40, 405 yards, and 3 TDs. I'll say this: Kirk Cousins ended his season on a high note.
Yeah, he
He
did.
did. And as much as like I like to crack jokes on Kirk Cousins, I do like the guy. I do like the guy. I think he's a very humble guy. I think he is a very good player. I think he does get a lot of hate, like a lot of hate, and regardless, that hate's from me. Some of that hate's from me. I'll admit it, but it's only because I want what's best for the Vikings. And let me say this: for a guy who started his season off with 6 picks within like the
Right.
first 5 games, he really turned it around, man.
Yeah, he did.
He, I think no, actually, he had like I think his ratio I think at one time was like 11 TDs and 11 picks, and he ends the season on 13.
Hmm.
So I got to give him a lot of credit. Like for you to start your season on 11 picks within the first half season, and the next half you go only 2 interceptions for the next half. I got to give him credit. And this is more, and the reason why we're losing these last few games was more on defense, I believe. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some offensive games where like you could have wished for better, but Kirk Cousins ended his season on a high note, and for that, I believe he should be a winner this week. Your thoughts?
Yeah, let me just start with Justin Jefferson real quick. I mean, obviously, he's definitely rookie of the year status. Him and Justin Herbert, both are incredible players. Both got extremely bright futures. Um, a lot of people thought that when the Vikings traded Stephon Diggs, I was one of those people, believe it or not. I didn't think they were going to get another wide receiver like him again. Because look at what Stephon Diggs is doing in Buffalo. But when the Vikings drafted Justin Jefferson, a lot of people said it. A lot of people said CeeDee Lamb was better. Help me out here. There's a lot of other guys out there.
Henry Ruggs, Jerry Judy,
Yeah,
um, Jalen Rager.
yeah, right. And Well, Justin Jefferson came on top, and at this point, excuse me, at this point, I'm not sure if it's safe for me to say it, but it's looking like that Justin Jefferson is Stephon Diggs' replacement. He's playing like it. He's proven it, and hell, even Stephon Diggs even shouted him out. You feel me? So with that said, congratulations to Justin Jefferson. This man's got an incredible future ahead of him. As for Derrick Henry, man, I don't know what else there is to say, man. Back-to-back rushing title, 2,000 yards, only the eighth player to accomplish that feat. That's an incredible feat, man. To be one of 8 players to do that, that's incredible. It really is. I don't. I mean, like you said, he said Dalvin Cook was the best. I mean, that's just him being humble. I mean, like you said, numbers don't lie. Derrick Henry is the best running back in the league. As for Kirk Cousins, you want to read me his stats again?
Yeah, Kirk Cousins went 28 for 40, 405 yards, and 3 TDs with no picks.
Yeah, I mean that's he did what we always say, finish strong, and that's what he did. Despite his team not going in the playoffs, I mean he ended it on a high note, like you said, and that's always good. Even though there was a lot of bad that came out of the season, there's always some good to come out of it, and that's the end. Oh, excuse me. Will he be the quarterback for the Vikings next year? We really don't know. He probably will be. Um, but if he is, obviously he's got to be doing this more often. Like you said, he started off as one of the worst quarterbacks, and he started to pick it up a bit. And I expect him, as a Vikings team that had a lot of promise, mind you, in the beginning of the year, just didn't live up to that expectation. I expect the Vikings to step it up next year, especially Kirk Cousins of all people. But with that said, yeah, that is our winners and losers for Week 17. We will catch you next season.